Two of the throws, four to the end zone, touchdown, Parker. Picked off by Xavien Howard. Tagovailoa trying to pick up for it, fires to the end zone, touchdown! That's hard work.
What's good, nation? What's good? Tonight I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, my good friend Neal Driscoll, now of SportsRants.com. Neal, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Dude, every time I get to sit here and get that intro, pump it into my blood I'm on my second Monster Energy drink of the day, man. I'm ready to go. Let's line up and do some Oklahomas after this, right?
That's amazing, brother. And guys, Neal has a big mock draft coming. It's Saturday, right, Neal?
Yeah, I'm dropping my initial article on Saturday. All 7 rounds, all compensatory picks, trades, all that good stuff, man. So it's going to be a doozy. I know that the Dolphin fans have made it really clear on who I should give the Dolphins, and I do think there are going to be a lot of happy Dolphin fans out there outside of reading my mock. But let's be honest, right? Come April, I'm going to be wrong. Second, third, fourth pick. I get a lot of red on my mock when I see it. So, it's a fun exercise projecting the players and all, but we all know that it becomes madness when the draft goes live and everyone's got a plan so they get punched in the face, Mike Tyson style. So, those plans change quick. But
let's be honest. If you get 25% of a team's picks right, that's like a home run in the mock draft. And I think that's why I built a lot of credibility up. I called Tua. I called Austin Jackson right before the pick. I called Noah right before the pick. I called Raekwon at 56. I called Curtis Weaver, Kinley Hunt, and I even called Benito Jones. And that's kind of how I started growing my stuff up. But see, I do it a bit differently than you guys do, right? You guys have to worry about every team, and that makes it way harder than just narrowing in on specific needs for one. So that's why I say if you get 25% of your mock right, like, that's pretty a ridiculous number when you're picking for every team. So
yeah, absolutely. I've had a year where I've probably pushed 10 once, but other than that, they've all been disasters. But I did go to the same high school as Mel Kiper, so I should have a little draft knowledge flowing through my brain, right? Like,
from what I've seen, you're more on point than Mel Kiper, so don't have to worry about that, brother.
Mel's a great dude. He's a big supporter, I'll say, of the football program at the school I went to. He's met him a couple times. Great, really good dude. I know that he could be, but he is the Godfather. We got to give him a little credit for being the Godfather of this. He's doing a good mock draft. I'll put it that way.
For sure. So before we get into, because guys, Neal has a big board of 5 players he's identified in free agency. But before we go over that, I wanted to ask you some other free agency questions.
Sure.
So in your opinion, what approach should the Miami Dolphins take in free agency? Because right now we have about $35.5 million. If we make some cuts like Wilson, Grant, a couple other players, we can get it up to about $55 million. What would you be doing with Xavien Howard wanting more money? Would you be increasing the guarantee? Would you you don't want to make him the highest paid corner once again because we already did it once and you maybe want to move off of him? Where are you sitting with the whole Xavien Howard wanting money? Because Neal, we know the agent he brought in, and the agent he brought in is renowned for getting guys paid like Olivier Vernon and Paul Soliai outside of Miami, not in Miami. So what are your whole thoughts on the Xavien Howard thing right now?
Yeah, as I answer that question, one thing for sure is, we've been Dolphin fans for a long time, and the Dolphins, now more than ever are as relative as they've been since Dan Marino, right? Like, they are a franchise that people from the outside perspective are really paying attention to because they're on the cusp of doing something that could be really special. But, it's important to hit on the draft picks that they do have. But, Xavien Howard's situation is going to be really, really interesting to see how it pays out. Like, he's going to push for $6 to $8 more million a year, right? Mm-hmm. And the Dolphins can afford it, and they can stomach it. But they also, you just signed a deal less than 2 years ago. And while he had a season that, will go down in the history of the Dolphins as being one of the best defensive seasons we've ever seen, right? There was a lot of question marks on Xavien headed into the season. He had some knee issues, and he looked healthy. He played well. He's the best player on the Dolphins right now, right? So,
Yep.
but his value is never going to be higher than it is right now. And, I'm not here going to lead the train to say trade Xavien Howard because, I don't think you trade your best player. But, we all know what the elephant in the room is on this team and Dolphins world is, I'm a Tua Tagovailoa guy, right? But there is a big contingency out there that thinks that the quarterback heading into week 1 next year would be Deshaun Watson. So if you think about it like this, right, and that materializes to something where discussions really, really happen, right? That's a guy who you could probably throw in a trade like that and maybe save some of your draft compensation. But, he wants to be in Miami from everything I've gathered and heard. And, Brian Flores loves him. That 1-2 punch of him and Byron Jones, it's the best in the league. How do you get rid of that? So I'm not a let's trade everything we have for Deshaun Watson guy. So I'm a let's ride with Tua guy, build around him, give him some weapons that aren't Mac Hollins and 3 guys that I saw at IHOP last weekend, right?
Yeah.
And let's keep Xavien Howard. But maybe we make it more a bonus structure based off of, look, man, if you get X amount of interceptions, no pun intended, this is the kind of bonus. I think it's going to work it out. Cooler heads will prevail. It's a business as much as it is a sport. But God, man, homegrown, drafted in round 2, it's become everything you've wanted. It's really hard to see that guy going out the door.
Yeah, and that's we can't all start lying to ourselves. Our DBs are a big reason why we got to 10 wins.
Probably the main reason. They played because look, Byron Jones never got interceptions. That was the kind of thing on him coming the season. He had 2. Both of them were pretty filthy picks, by the way.
Yep.
You have him, and Eric Rowe played out of his mind. Okay, Darren Waller caught a lot of balls on a primetime game. Well, Darren Waller is really, really good.
Yep.
Eric Rowe more than held his own, was awesome. And, when we talk about potential cap cuts, one guy I've seen mentioned that I just don't think is a cap cut is Bobby McCain. He's a leader of this team. $5.6 million to get rid of a guy who's another you drafted, you developed. And look, he's playing out of position and playing pretty damn good compared to some of the other free safeties we've thrown out there, like Gabriel Wilson. And, we've all seen those names in the past. So, I think keeping that secondary intact is actually the best route. And then I think take it to the next level. This is a pretty decent safety class.
Yeah,
use a 1st or 2nd round pick to get one. The guy's name that I have circled and starred that will be a great fit in Miami is Richie Grant from Central Florida. He really turned heads at the combine. The Patriots defense used 3 or 4 safeties on the field at a given time. We need depth there. Let's keep this secondary intact and keep building.
Yeah. And another name I think should be on everyone's radar is DeMar Hamlin. I think they really came away from the Senior Bowl loving that kid. But I love Richie Grant. You heard what Matt Rule said. If I could take any one player from the Senior Bowl, I'd take Richie Grant. Sure. And what's crazy is a guy because he didn't play, Javon Holland might be sitting there in the 3rd. And that's crazy. The guy's played the boundary, the slot, single high perch, in the box. I don't think he has the body for the box at the NFL level. But speaking of Eric Rowe, me and my partner, EM, we were really high on Eric Rowe coming in to this season because from what we saw last year. I really think he was one of the best rovers and I know Flo hates that word. I think he was one of the best rovers in the NFL this year.
Yeah, he was awesome. And actually, while we're talking about it, let me punch myself in the face. I forgot how good Brandon Jones was as a rookie this year.
Yep.
Mentioned in safety. So I don't want to leave that guy out for sure. But yeah, Eric Rowe, and he's a good culture fit guy. He knows Flores. I know that people think culture is the most overrated term there is in sports. But, I see it in business and a good culture to a team really can drive results. And I think you see with the Dolphins, we have had some historically bad cultures. The Joe Philbin era, when, he was trying to get Derek Carr, when, the front office wanted Ryan Tannehill. We've seen so much here. Like to have the team that everyone's saying has the good culture, whether culture's overrated or not, I love being the guys that have the good one and that people want to come to versus, oh, no one wants to go to Miami because it's a mess, So, I really think that Flores has a lot to do with these guys' success because he is a brilliant defensive mind. Mm-hmm. he didn't get enough credit in New England, and he flew under the radar. And if you remember during the process of the Dolphins, everyone thought it was going to be the guy out of Dallas. What was his name? The young defensive back coach. I'm drawing a blank, sorry. But everyone thought he was going to be the guy that we were going to bring in, and that was like the fan favorite for the coach. And Flores, God, he gets in here and he really installs this discipline, and people bought in, and the culture is real. It's not fake here. It's so fun to be a part of.
Yeah, and what's great too is with the culture they're building, Neal, 90% of the league lives in Miami. So it's kind of like the perfect storm is starting to brew here if we turn this team into a legitimate. And you know what? With the financial capital we have and with the draft capital we have, I think 12 wins next year is not out of the realm of possibility. And that's why you saw me today when I did my mock. And that's a first mock I put up here because I don't like doing that stuff publicly. And until after free agency, even then I'm going to be like you. I'm going to do, the first mock I'm actually going to have on this channel. First mock show is going to be a 2-round manual handpicked. I ain't using no simulator, and I'm going to pick for every team, just like you're doing. I'm just not going 7 rounds because I'm not a god like you doing that. You know what I mean? So, but all right. Do you want to start off with the draft, or do you want to start off with a little bit of free agency?
Let's start draft. I always love talking draft, and
and we'll get into guys. We're gonna put up his big board for free agency for you guys to look at. All right, so let's keep on Xavien Howard. I just got one question for you before we hop into some draft talk here. Do you think he was absolutely disrespected with only 3 votes when he had clearly a better season than what Gilmore did last year, who won the MVP? Because, Neal, this wasn't even, if you go by Donald's MVP years, this season wasn't up to par to his other MVP years. Defensive player of the years. So, how did you feel about Xavien Howard only getting 3 votes when he did something that no corner had done in over 10 years with the 10 interceptions?
As I earlier said, how relevant the Dolphins have become. The last weekend when it was the Hall of Fame, the coach voting, and this, I really believe the Dolphins got completely shammed on multiple fronts. Don't even get me started on Zach Thomas not getting in the Hall of Fame, because that's a downright travesty. I also thought Brian Flores got screwed. Like, the Cleveland Browns have way more talent on their team than we do. We're in year 2 of a rebuild. They're on year 12? Like, come on, Brian. Like, it's ridiculous. But yeah, it was downright disrespectful. Like, are we valuing sacks more than interceptions in the NFL right now? Like, the last time I checked, the sack doesn't give the possession to the other team, but an interception does. We're not talking a guy who had 6 or 7 interceptions. We're talking 10 interceptions. Mind you, that he also had that fumble recovery against the Chiefs that he returned for like an 80-yard touchdown that got taken back on a review. But but he did force the fumble later in that game too. In the middle, I mean, Xavien Howard was the best defensive player in football this year, and I think second was T.J. Watt, and I think third was Aaron Donald. And in the NBA, they don't give LeBron James the MVP every year. I feel like they're giving Aaron Donald the defensive player of the year. And look, outside of Pat Mahomes, he's probably the best player in the league, but man, give people their due. Xavien Howard, I mean, will we see a season like that in the next 5 years from a cornerback? I'm not so sure.
Yeah. And I don't buy the whole, let's be honest, Neal, playoff appearance is not supposed to impact the vote. And that's my issue with this, because some people are like, oh, well, it's because the Dolphins didn't make the playoffs. That's not supposed to impact the vote on an individual player's performance.
Sure. Because
there's 2 sides of the football. All right. Like, he can't play offense as well. You know what I mean? That's why I'm like, it's kind of a Swiss cheese, argument that we can just poke holes through, right?
Without Xavien Howard being on the Miami Dolphins this year and playing at the level he did, the Dolphins are probably an 8-8 team. His play probably won them 2 games. I mean, you had those interceptions. I mean, just it wasn't just like in garbage time. Like, he was making clutch plays like quickly. And I didn't understand that. It really baffled me. I mean, 3 votes. Like, come on now. Like, did we watch a different season?
Yeah, I agree, man. We got 175 in the room. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new. All right, let's get into some draft talk. So there's a lot of talk about the number 3 pick right now. there's a lot of divide, wide receiver, trade back. You got me leading the Penei Sewell train out here. Where are you at with the number 3 pick with the draft? Because I keep telling people, to me, Penei's the move, and you kick Hunt inside to guard. You saw he can't handle guys with above average bend. He just doesn't have the feet to move laterally. He doesn't have the hip flexibility. When he drops his butt, he's constantly into his lap. And I've been a proponent of, even before we drafted Tua, because everyone was worried about the injury. I said, hey, you build a wall like they got in Las Vegas or Indianapolis. So if Tua, God forbid, the quarterback you draft doesn't work out, you can plop another guy back there. And I'm another proponent of, if you get your franchise quarterback behind a wall, all of a sudden, 800, 700-yard running backs can break 1,000 behind that line. Those guys who were talking about, you saw at IHOP, all of a sudden you can get serious production. 700-800 guys can break 1,000 as a receiver due to the time your franchise quarterback's going to have behind that line to survey and process. So where are you at with the number 3 pick?
Yeah, there's 2 schools of thought for me when you look at this pick, right? First of all, there's the fan, and I'm a Dolphins fan, so you get emotionally invested in certain players. Like last year, if we didn't get Tua and we left that draft, I would have been devastated, right? Like, so we fall in love with players, and there's a lot of guys to fall in love with this year. And if the Dolphins don't pick that player, a lot in the community will be upset. One scenario you'll see now is that Devontae Smith, who I have as the top receiver in the draft, is the favorite for the Dolphins community. But you'll see a lot of mock drafts pop up with Jamar Chase, and Dolphins fans are at arms. But like, Jamar Chase is a hell of a player too, So it's like, you can't fall in love with players. You got to think of the vision of the position, right? But there's also the second school of thought for me is that, when you look at it from the C level, the executives on this team, right? That draft capital, it's not every year you find yourself with a top 5 draft pick, especially a pick you practically stole in a trade from the Houston Texans. So one of the smart moves to do is to maximize that resource and to accumulate more picks. So there's 2 schools of thought. First of all, I would never bash them for taking Penei Sewell. I have him as the second best player in this entire draft behind Trevor Lawrence. I think he's the next Walter Jones. I think he's a plug and play as a rookie right tackle. But if Austin Jackson doesn't show you significant progress, and this is not a knock on Austin Jackson, he played exceeded my expectations as a rookie. You move him to left side, right side, whatever he's doing, he's blocking to it. Like Sewell completes the offensive line, even though there'll still be a need at center. But with Hunt inside, on the left guard, you got Flowers and Kinley, and then you have Jesse Davis as a rotational piece. The line looks like it'd be really set with Sewell. With that said, I know they need a receiver, and they need multiple receivers. And $35 million in cap space it's actually in the top 8 in the league, I believe. But you sign one top free agent in your draft class because of COVID impact on the salary cap. You don't really have a lot of money. So, I couldn't imagine them not getting one of these 3 big receivers, even though I like Rashad Bateman. I like Rondell Moore. Yeah. There are great players out there. It's a really deep class. But, I do think there's something to say about the familiarity that Tua would have with a Waddle or a Devontae Smith. I really do. But there's a very short list for me. It's Sewell, it's Jamar Chase, it's Jalen Waddle, or it's Devontae Smith. And outside of that, you trade back and you probably pick up a second from a team like the Carolina and a 2022 first rounder. And I know that a lot of the scouts in the community are going to be favoring 2022 picks because they're hoping that college football returns to normalcy a little bit this year, and they'll actually go out and be able to scout, because a lot of this, they're going off of tape from 2 years ago where, a lot of these key players opted out this year. So it will be interesting to see, but God, it's exciting, right? To have the 3rd pick. You're probably going to get the best non-quarterback in this draft. But you also might get a team like Detroit or Carolina who could be really bad next year to give you another first rounder and just move back 4 or 5 spots.
Man, if we got another top 5 pick next year, I'd be banging the table for Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon. Man. I think he's more special than any edge in this class right now. So I think he's going to be a beast. Okay, so with the 18th pick, all right? So I've been a proponent. I've started pushing this narrative a little bit of I take Penei at 3. I'm tired of letting the board settle the draft for me. We've accumulated this capital. I'm of the firm belief we're a lot closer to being a contender than what we were this time last year coming up at the draft. And I kind of called out a lot of mocks today. Why are we the team that's constantly trading back? Why can't we be the team that takes someone at 3, moves back into the top 10, and gets one of those 3 receivers you're talking about? Because I'll be honest with you. I had Devontae Smith as the guy in the season, way through the season. I said, this guy's going to win the Heisman. Bam, he wins the Heisman. I had him up there. Now, my thing, I've kind of changed a little bit. That 4.27 speed that I know Waddle's going to put on the board, I posted up here. I don't know if you've seen it. I posted on Twitter as well. In his freshman year, he raced Henry Ruggs in a 40-yard dash, and it was literally a nose-to-nose finish.
I've seen the clip.
Exactly. So, and we all know Henry ran a 4.27. Josh Jacobs came out because he was a running back that freshman year for Waddle. He said, this kid's going to run a 4.27 at worst. And you know what? Here's the thing. Last year, he only had 40 receptions because he wasn't targeted as much. And this year, Neal, before he got hurt, let's all call a spade a spade. He was outperforming Devontae Smith. And another thing I keep telling people is, what do coaches love to do with rookies in year 1? Special teams. And I think we can all agree Waddle's way more dynamic with the ball in his hands than Devontae Smith and Jamar Chase. Because here's my issue with Jamar Chase. I see elite traits at the catch point and a really, really good catch radius. I do not see elite traits after the catch. He came from a offense because his freshman year was not impressive by any stretch of the imagination. So his sophomore year, Joe Brady comes in, and he was the king of manufacturing space for that receiving core. I said last year, I think Justin Jefferson's a better receiver. We saw how that worked out last year. Justin Jefferson absolutely tore the walls off, and I still can't believe the Eagles took Rager. Unbelievable. Anyways, and then my thing with Jamar Chase too is a lot of plays you watch. Well, he also needed a historic, season from Joe Burrow to get where he was, and Devontae Smith crushed all that this year with Mac Jones of all people. And imagine what he would have done with Tua this year. Tua would have won the freaking Heisman, would have won another national championship, and he probably would have been drafted higher than Trevor Lawrence because Trevor Lawrence's playoffs, and that pro day, my friend. Trevor Lawrence gave me a ton of worry in the red zone, buddy, because you're missing throws in your underwear, bud. Hey, I love your deep throws. Beautiful money. Wow. But when you get to the money, that's the end zone. Woo, he left some cause for concern. But anyways, back to whatever I'm going here. Do you think it's possible we move up from 18? If not, Neal, what do you do with the 18th pick when you're sitting there? If a Olajari is there, or Kwity Paye, or Joseph Asai, Xavien Collins, is that just as tantalizing as taking a Rashad Bateman? Because here's the thing, Neal, I'm a huge fan of Rashad Bateman.
Absolutely.
Okay, I see OBJ light, and I think he can do a lot of the things Jamar can do, but you don't have to spend a top 10 pick. So what would you do at 18? Would you try and move back up to get one of those top 3 receivers, or would you sit pat and let the board play out and see what you got in front of you?
Well, yeah, I think the best case scenario for the Dolphins is to get Sewell at 3 and move up and get one of those receivers. And I think one of them might fall outside the top 10.
Who do you think it's going to be?
Waddle, because he's coming off injury and coming into the draft, and I'm talking, we're splitting hairs here. I have Devontae Smith as the 3rd overall prospect. I have Jamar Chase as the 5th, and I have Jalen Waddle as the 8th. I actually think when we look at this in retrospect, that the best pro could easily be Jalen Waddle for the reasons you mentioned.
I agree with that.
He's the closest thing to Tyreek Hill we've seen in a long time.
That's my comp, baby. I love you, Neal. Go ahead.
And like, so if you can get one of those guys in a trade up, I don't even care if we give up both of our seconds. If you walk out with a Waddle and Sewell on day 1 in the 2nd round, they're wins. I don't think the Dolphins are going to have to do that. We'll see what happens. But if they don't trade and they're sitting on an 18, I'm actually going to break the biggest rule that I've ever had in my life when it comes to the draft. But I'm going to take Najee Harris. And the reason I'm going to take Najee Harris is because I think that cat is special. And I think that first of all, he fumbled once in like 500 carries. He can catch the ball. He'll light you up if you blitz. He can run with power. He can outrun the defense. He's got an extra gear. He's familiar with Tua, right? So, like, there's a lot of things to check. They wanted J.K. Dobbins last year, but they just loved Raekwon Davis. Like, they wanted Dobbins. They spent a ton of time. Eric Studesville spent more time with J.K. Dobbins than any prospect the Dolphins spent, and other than Tua probably, right? So, like, they need a running back. And Myles Gaskin can be a really good Arn Anderson, but he's not a Ric Flair. And we need a Ric Flair in this offense. And I really believe it's Najee Harris. I believe that he can be the guy who brings balance to this offense, takes a little bit of the pressure off Tua, and allows the passing game to open up. Because, look, as productive as Myles Gaskin was, and, like, if you played fantasy football, he was one of the biggest sleepers you could have had down the stretch, right? But no one was scared of Myles Gaskin. You know, like, defenses didn't come into the week saying, oh, my God, we got to tackle number 37. Trust me when I tell you that any defender in the SEC that had to hit Najee Harris, they remember they had to hit Najee Harris. So, like, that, it breaks my golden rule, because I never want to spend a high resource on a running back. But then you look at what some of these guys like Aaron Jones are projected to get in free agency, and it's a better use of your resources, because at least if you draft one in the first round, you have that 5th year of eligibility. Then you don't have to pay the guy, and you can really get 5 good years, versus if you take a guy in the second round, you got him for 4. And in the NFL, that running back life cycle, every year counts.
Mm-hmm. Agreed, man. So when you're sitting there at 36, all right, let's say we've gone Panay and now we've gone Najee, right? What would you be targeting? Would you be targeting like a Rondell Moore, a Kadarius Toney? I really like Terrace Marshall. I get DK vibes from that kid. What would you be doing at 36? Or if you took your receiver at 18, would you be trying to target a guy who I absolutely love, Javonte Williams from UNC? What would you be doing there at 36? What do you think the Dolphins might have in mind? Or would you be going your line, but you're trying to find your alpha Mike?
Well, I'm gonna tip one pick from my mock that's drafted Saturday right here, just for you, Reason.
Love it.
I have the Dolphins moving up in a trade with the Packers here, and I have them snagging Xavien Collins, linebacker from Tulsa. I think, given his size of 260 pounds, can run like a deer, sideline to sideline agility. He can make plays on the ball. He can rush the passer. I just see Brian Flores with a big grin on his face, like he was with Raekwon Davis, rubbing those hands together to, like, let me get this dude in my defense. And look, linebacker is probably, outside of receiver, the team's biggest need. Landon Roberts, I think, lost his arm like the last time we saw him, and he's an unrestricted free agent. Yeah. We all have, difference of opinions whether Jerome Baker is an ideal fit. He's a great fit as a rushing linebacker. Against the run, I'm not sure he's stout enough to be the 3-down guy that, Xavien Collins could be. So I have them getting him, and Packers fans will be rejoiced to know that in exchange for the pick that they gave, they used the Dolphins pick to get Tutu Atwell to give a compliment to Devontae Adams for Aaron Rodgers. So,
speed, right?
Yep. So win-win, but like Xavien Collins, like, I have him as my 11th overall player in this draft.
Wow.
That's how high I am of him. So I just believe that this guy's a difference maker. When you break down a couple of the things that are out there on him, you watch some of the tape, I watch him and I just see that dude flying around, and I want that dude on my team.
Don't you get Dante Hightower vibes?
I do. Dante Hightower, but maybe, just even a better pass rusher, which is, and then Hightower, like, we've seen him he opted out, but, he's breaking down a little bit, but, like, there was a time where, he was really pressing that top 5 linebacker in the league.
Mm-hmm. I like Xavien Collins. I really, really do. And I agree with you. I think he's I got to put my subjective aside and be objective, right? And I think he's the perfect scheme fit. The guy who I wish was just a little bit taller, because he's my man crush, a linebacker, is Nick Bolton.
Me too.
I just get such Zach Thomas vibes from that guy, the way he shoots that. And for a smaller guy, he is so good in coverage. It's ridiculous. Like,
he'll hit you. He'll hit you.
oh, that's what I love, brother. And
Yeah.
back-to-back 110 plus tackle seasons in the SEC. I just, I love him, but I agree with you. Xavien Collins, I think, if they were both on the board, that's the pick because he just fits what they need in this defense. I agree with you 110%. I wanted to get your thoughts quickly on Kyle Pitts, because if they miss out on one of those top 3 guys, they can't just move back up. What would your opinion be of them saying, you know what, we'll wait on running back a little bit, and them taking a guy like Kyle Pitts potentially at 18 if he happens to slip?
Yeah, sign me up. Move up and get him. I think he's going to be the type of player we are all projecting OJ Howard to be. I think he is a mismatch nightmare. I don't give a crap if he can block. Durham Smythe is a great blocking tight end, and I'm not going to let Mike Gesicki stop me from drafting him. I think it's Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino on the Draft Network. They always say, don't let a good player prevent you from taking a great player. And, and I'm a big fan of those guys' work. They do a great job. And I will say that I think Kyle Pitts has the potential to be a great player. And look, if you even move back from pick 3 and you're at pick 8 and you acquire more draft capital and you think he's worth taking at 8, you go to the podium and make that pick. He's that kind of player. And I like Pat Freiermuth too.
Love him. I love him, buddy.
Touchdown machine. My wife is a Penn State grad, so I pay a lot of attention to Penn State. Definitely a great red zone threat, but there's something about that athletic profile and the ability to move that Kyle Pitts has that I just have a vision of him just catching 40-yard touchdowns on linebackers down the seam, and I would love to see that dude catching some passes down the seam from Tua,
Yeah. And you can use him on the boundary, and I think he'll just beast people on the bound. I had Jeremy Klump on here, as
Sure.
you know, from Cincinnati. Yep. You know what his comp was for Pitts? And it really made me sit back and think. Megatron. Huh? Yeah. I was like, that's an interesting, when you look at the size, the athletic profile. I was like, man, you really got me going and here's another thing. We're one of the most heavy 12-man personnel teams out there.
Sure.
Right? So why not add another? And, I love Pat Freiermuth. I think everyone's just sleeping on him because he didn't play. Guy's a solid blocker. He's so solid in the red zone. But I agree with you. Kyle Pitts is he looks like he might be generational at that position. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Freiermuth didn't have a shot. The quarterback play at Penn State was awful. It was just completely out of sync all season. It's hard to judge a guy when it's that erratic. I watched Freiermuth running with no one within 5 yards, and the guy was skipping the balls to him. So I won't even read into that. But, I think we're having the right conversation. The names we're mentioning, right? Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, Kyle Pitts. Dolphins need playmakers. There's a lot of them in the draft. And honestly, there's some really special ones. And if they can walk away with one or two of those guys, the team that we saw last year, it's going to look night and day, especially if you can add. You don't have to get Kenny Golladay, Allen Robinson, or Juju Smith-Schuster in free agency, but there are some guys, Kendrick Bourne, Curtis Samuel, that can get open. Keelan Cole, they're guys that can get open and be a number 3 receiver that's dangerous. And another guy that our division rival Jets might cut, I saw today, was Jamison Crowder. Yeah. I don't know what the price tag is on that guy, but God, I like him in the short and intermediate passing game. So we're having the right conversation. Playmakers are needed. They're here. I think this regime of the Dolphins is a little different, right, for me than the past. I think our needs have always been pretty apparent, at least to the fans in the front office. But our old front offices used to get cute and try to Deion Jordan and stuff like that. Brian Flores and them know what they need, and they get it. And that's where it's like a breath of fresh air. Chris Greer, I'll be completely honest. When they made him the GM, I was kind of underwhelmed. Oh, come on, man. We're recycling this guy within the organization. He's knocked my socks off. He's been awesome. And, people will point to Noah Igbenogany as a pick that hasn't worked out. The guy's the youngest guy in the NFL. he had one game that was awful against Stephon Diggs. And the last time I checked, that guy Stephon Diggs is pretty good at football.
Yeah.
And the other guy tries too. And
Lockett gave him the work too a little bit.
yeah, and you know what?
Lockett's what I think the most underrated receiver in football. So.
God, he's awesome. I mean, that core in Seattle is amazing. But the guy's young. Like, look at the guys from the SEC, the receivers like Jamar Chase, who's the best player you faced, the kid from Auburn. Like,
yeah,
that's a lot of respect for your peers. So
yeah, because he was locked down against LSU and Bama.
Oh.
Van Jefferson might have given him the work when they faced Florida, but he locked down against the top SEC teams, man. And that's a kid who only played the position for what, 2 years?
Yeah. Outside of Tua, he's going to be the most improved player on the Dolphins next year.
I agree. And you know what I like about that pick? They're grooming a guy for when they either have to move on from Byron or X's contract. You can slide him right in. That's what winners do. Look at what Casey just did with drafting Lucas Niang to be Mitchell Schwartz's eventual replacement at right tackle. That's what smart teams do.
Sure.
Okay, so Devontae Smith is clearly your wide receiver one. I wanted to ask you, Sewell clearly is your OT1.
Absolutely.
How far off do you think him and Slater are?
I know there's a lot of noise about Slater in the community being as highly regarded. And I'll tell you this, I've watched a lot more of Sewell than I have of Slater. But to me, it's not close. I think Slater's attraction is that he can play guard. He can maybe even kick into center. He's got a little bit more versatility, but he's good at a lot of the positions. Penei Sewell is extremely, extremely dominant and elite. And look what teams do when they build their franchise. The Baltimore Ravens did it all the way back in 1996 when they took Jonathan Ogden. Mm-hmm. When the Rams recirculated in 97, they took Orlando Pace, right? The Dolphins in 2018, when they were rebuilding, they took Jake Long and injuries derailed the guy, but he make 4 or 5 straight Pro Bowls before that? And Long's not even on the same stratosphere as Penei Sewell. Sewell's 20 years old. This guy has potential to be the best offensive tackle in football. Ronnie Stanley, Laramie Tunsil, those are the guys that get a lot of the press, and they're rightfully so. But God, Sewell's awesome. And you know what? He's got some ties to Tua too, and they've, been around each other. And, I think he'd be more than happy to throw in himself in at right tackle, protect Tua's blind side. And then the offensive line's a strength. And right now, I think they were adequate. I think they were adequate last year. Better than I expected, probably, with some rookies. But, Penei Sewell can obviously take it to the next level and would take it to the next level.
Yeah, the way that guy pulls, how good he is in the screen game, and he just mauls people. I love the kid. I see, took his first snap at Oregon left guard at the age of 17, man. And I get the versatility thing, but it's like people are forgetting that Sewell was a guard recruit, a 4-star guard recruit. Yep. You know what I mean? And he played right guard, left tackle, right tackle. I know you saw the video I posted of him dominating people at right tackle. And it's just, I don't know. People were just nitpicking too hard. And here's another thing, Neal. Tristan Wirfs was my OT1 back in October 2019. Just like Antoine Winfield was my safety one when Pro Football Network and the Draft Network all had him ranked in the 180s as a player. Winfield was my number one guy. I stuck to my guns, and I thank God I did, because Wirfs was not only the best right tackle in football this year, he was a top 3, top 5 tackle in football this year. And I don't know whether you do or not. Let us know. I have a higher grade on Sewell than I did on Wirfs coming out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Sewell's the best we've seen in a while, right? When Tunsil came out, we all know the mass situation that pushed him down to 13 of the Dolphins, but he was really highly regarded. Daniel Jeremiah was all over him. I think he was even comparing him to Jonathan Ogden. I mean, Sewell's the best since him, at least, and might be better than Tunsil. I think his athleticism is a little bit better than Tunsil's for sure. But yeah, I mean, he is as solid as a prospect as there is. He's the best non-quarterback for me in this draft. I know that the Bengals fans are crossing their fingers and turning their pajamas inside out that he falls to them at 5. I don't see that happening, because I actually believe that if he's on the board at 4, the Atlanta Falcons don't even really need an offensive tackle with Jake Matthews and Caleb McGarry there. but I still think they take him.
Yeah.
I really do. I think, again, you can't let good players prevent you from taking great. And that's a guy who has potential to be gold jacket good.
Yeah, and I think the Bengals, it's either going to be if Sewell's there, they take him. If not, I think they're all in on Jamar Chase, to be honest with you. Okay. So, we'll get to your free agent big board after we cover a few more things about the draft here.
Yeah.
And you have a center on it. But I want to ask you, in this draft, who is your center one right now?
I'm a Creed Humphrey guy, but I obviously think Landon Dickerson's a complete badass. Like I like him coming off the injury, but God, his teammates love him. Again, the Tua connection. But I've loved Creed Humphrey for a while. He's a wrestler, right? So he's got that short, stout. He's tough, country strong. I mean, and I've liked him for so long. The Sooners are one of the teams I love to throw on, and I just think Creed Humphrey's good. The news that came out this week, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Barry Jackson that put it out there that the Dolphins might be looking to sign Ted Karras to an extension.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, and like I don't know what the money would look like. And Karras did a better job than I thought that he was going to do.
I'd rather invest in Dieter and see what I got with that guy.
Yeah, I just think that why spend the money when you can probably get a guy in the second or third round that comes in as a plug and play and can withhold that level of play. But I like Creed Humphrey a lot. But I definitely like Landon Dickerson a lot too. And I think he's a guy. And then Josh Myers out of Ohio State's another guy. But you know what? It's funny. Every year there's these interior offensive linemen that end up becoming starters that, we see mocked in 5th and 6th rounds of the draft. Like the center is one of those value picks for me that, like, for example, if we did take Penei Sewell, I wouldn't want to spend another early draft pick on another offensive lineman. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Dieter did play pretty well when he had a chance last year. And he is a Wisconsin guy who has that kind of pedigree.
And he had center reps at Wisconsin too, right?
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. But I think my free agent big board will help us with what I think maybe some of the things the Dolphins should be able to do before the draft. Because you said this, right? Doing mock drafts right now is more fun than it is predictive because the free agency changes everything. It really can. I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence going number 1 to Jacksonville, we can put in chalk at this point. But everything else, who knows?
I think you can put Zach, from what I'm hearing, I think you can put Zach Wilson locked in at number 2.
So then that means you don't think the Jets have a legit shot at Watson?
No, I don't think so.
No,
I mean, the reports from the camp was they don't want to go there.
Yeah, I don't know either way. I just, when you look at the resources like that, as a Dolphin fan, one thing that terrifies me is the Jets getting Deshaun Watson. I'll be honest. I totally don't want that to happen, even though he was 4-12 with the Texans. There's JV high school football teams that are probably run better than the Houston Texans.
And I think Joe Douglas is a fantastic GM. And I think Robert Saleh is going to be an absolutely fantastic head coach.
That's head coach hire this season, I think.
I agree with you, man. And, that's why I keep telling people, my thought process is, when you have a GM, Darnold isn't his guy. We've heard the reports that he's not happy with Darnold's second half adjustments in his deep ball. We've also heard the reports that the trade talks are out there right now for Sam Darnold. And usually the thumbprint of a GM is he gets his coach and then they go get their quarterback, their guy, and they tie their success to that guy. So we'll see how it goes. I wanted to ask you about a center though. You're talking about guys who come out of nowhere, and I think there's 2 of them, but I want to lock in one specifically, and both are at the Senior Bowl. One being Robert Hainsey from Notre Dame, and the other one being Quinn Meinerz. And I want to get your thoughts on Quinn Meinerz' Senior Bowl performance because he had some pretty dominant reps against guys like Patrick Jones, et cetera, and he really helped his draft stock. And he comes from Whitewater, Wisconsin, right? A really small school. What were your thoughts on Quinn Meinerz?
I mean, was he the MVP of Senior Bowl week? Probably. He helped his draft stock a lot. And there was a couple, maybe that was Daniel Jeremiah again, but somebody was tipping off before that they thought he was really going to make a climb up. I love the temperament he plays with. He just seems like he's in there, he's having fun, and he wants to light you up and put you on your back. And, that guy's there in round 3. I mean, there you go. There's a plug and play center for sure. I mean, he helped himself. His stock is on this ascension because of what he did in Mobile. No doubt about it. Who was the second guy? Hainsey, Notre Dame. Hainsey's an interesting cat because he's got a lot of versatility. I mean, he's another guy that can play all 5 positions along the offensive line. And I know that I read the same things you read. The Dolphins spent a lot of time with him in Mobile. And what, you probably get him in the 4th, 5th round, So again, you don't have to use a high pick. I have a feeling that guy is. You said Damar Hamlin earlier.
Yeah,
Damar Hamlin, Robert Hainsey. Those are kind of guys that I could see the Dolphins taking in the middle of the late rounds of this draft. Both of those kind of guys that fit Flores' character. The Dolphins spent a lot of time with him. I could totally see both of those being fit. I like Hainsey at worst because I think that you can never have too much depth on your offensive line.
agreed.
And a guy that can play all those positions. I mean, there's a lot of value there.
And we all know how much the staff loves versatility, right?
Yeah. And Notre Dame's become offensive line right? Like, God, the last few years, they've put some really good talent, and they have Liam Eichenberg, they have Hainsey, they have Aaron Banks. I mean, they have a lot of talent in this year's class as well.
Yeah. And I really think, like you mentioned, Hainsey spending apparently, from what I was hearing, 1 or 2 hours after every practice with Flo and the staff. Like you mentioned, character. These guys, they value. I keep telling people they value character just as much as talent, right? They want guys with high character and high talent, right?
And versatility.
Yeah, agreed.
Ingredients to a Dolphins player in 2021.
Agreed. So, what's the strongest position in terms of depth in this draft class to you?
I love the wide receiver class. I really do, because like you said, Bateman and Moore, there's Kadarius Toney, Terrace Marshall. I mean, it is completely loaded. And you know what? We saw that last year, and we thought it was a historic class. And, I think it is again. There's guys like North Carolina, Diami Brown, Amari Rogers from Clemson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, USC. Dwayne Eskridge made himself a lot of money in Milwaukee. But some guys in the mid to late round that I really, really like a lot is Shi Smith from South Carolina, Marquise Stevenson from Houston. He's a burner, has a lot of speed. And then one guy who didn't play this year, Nico Collins from Michigan, had the makings of an early day 2 pick, opted out. It's hard to get a good grasp on these Michigan receivers because for some reason they cannot even begin to figure out the quarterback position. But, and then one more guy I'll throw in there is Auburn's Anthony Schwartz is like silly fast.
Yeah. And
he's another guy in the mid round. So I think the Dolphins are coming out of this draft with 2 receivers, and I think they come out of free agency with 1. So I think we're going to see 3 new pass catchers on this team when training camp rolls around next season.
I love it. Would you cut Albert Wilson?
Yeah. I'll make a lot of people pissed. I'll cut Albert Wilson. I'll cut Jakeem Grant too. I love him as a return man, but like those drops, and they're consistent drops. Like, he has potential to make big plays, but like, man, like, how many times do I have to trust you before you break it? And both those guys, I mean, you cut both those guys, I think it's $6.5 million in cap savings. I think that Parker, Preston Williams, and Lynn Bowden will be 3 guys that will make 3 of the 6 receivers. And I think we draft 2 and we sign 1. So I think Grant Wilson, Allen Hurns are all on the outside looking in.
Yep. All right. So one more question about the draft, and then let's get into your big board here. I just want to hear, do you have any sleepers in this draft that Dolphin fans should be keeping an eye on?
Sure. One guy who shined in Senior Bowl week was Demetric Felton from UCLA, running back, wide receiver. Dolphins had him on their team, spent a lot of time. I love his versatility. I really think he could be a good playmaker to have on your team. He's not going to be a feature back, but he's the kind of guy who's like the jack of all trades. If you take a guy like that in the 4th round, and he can be your return dude as well. So there's a lot of value there. And I like a lot of I'm going to pull it up right here because I like a lot of the edge rushers here in the class, especially in the mid to late rounds. One guy that's not getting a lot of love for me that I think is really, really good is Oklahoma's Ronnie Perkins. I think he could set the edge. I'm a big fan of him. Carlos Basham from Wake Forest.
Boogie.
Yeah, he is a freaking ridiculous athlete that just really has the length and the size that you look for. You can go down the edge rusher class, but Dalen Hayes from Notre Dame is a guy that I think the Dolphins could probably potentially get in the 5th round. And he checks all the boxes when you look for somebody who could be a defensive depth piece on the edge for the Dolphins.
Since you paid attention to Penn State, what are your thoughts on Shaka Toney?
God, there's times when the guy looks like he's a 1st-round pick, and then there's times where he looks undraftable. It's just, I don't think James Franklin's doing a great job with Penn State program. I think they've had a lot of talent, and for whatever reason, it it's just not working out. I think the school could do a better job and start looking for a replacement. I don't think he's there. But, I think he's a guy, Tony, that if you get him in the 4th round, he can be a really good player. I've seen mocks have him go in the round 1. I've seen mocks not have him drafted. So, I don't really know. Too inconsistent for my liking, though, to be honest. Like, if I'm looking for someone who's going to be a proven commodity, I think the Dolphins need to get some proven commodities on this team. It fits. Flores seems like the kind of guy that'd rather have 5 really good players than 1 elite player.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like, you can take swings for talent in the late rounds, and it's one thing. But, if we come out with our second round pick and take Shaka Toney, I just wouldn't be a big fan of that.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. Let's get into the free agency. First, I just want to do a few plugs here. Guys, there's 228 of you in the room. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. If you'd like to donate to the channel, of course, paypal.me/Finside. Guys, if you want to become a Finside, the NFL Patreon, my big boards are going to be going up early there. Also, I'm going to be doing private Patreon only streams. So patreon.com/Finside the NFL. Guys, there's a $2, $5, $10, $15, and $20 level. And I just want to give a quick shout out to all 21 of our Patreons. Of course, I got to start all the way at the beginning. Infinite Trauma, Rhino Sits, Fake Spike 94, KA All Day, Ramon Casillas, Slim Pickens, Big Time, Red Dino, Marino's Goat, Conflict, our latest, Irving, appreciate you. The Arkham Elf, Cap for Life, Zoe Vegas 75, Joe B, Martin, Jazza 803, Tranquilize, Josh, your boy Trev, and Keith Davis. Appreciate each and every one of our Patreons. And guys, I appreciate each and every one of you for just tuning in, smashing that like button, and taking some time out with me and Neal. Of course, patchvibes.com. You can use code FINSIDE for 20% off all store-wide on your purchase. And of course, that equalizer Tua Tagovailoa meme is now on shirts, now on hoodies. Go to Finside the NFL official merch shop, teespring.com/stores/Finside the NFL. All right, let's get into your big board, my friend, because I did a top 10 target list, and you have a couple players on there that I had as well. But at the top here, you have a player that I didn't put on, and I'm smacking myself in the face for not putting him on it because it's a good call here. All right, let's get into it.
Sure.
So,
yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yep, there we go.
Go ahead, my friend. I had 3 of these guys: Samuel, Corey Linsley, and Aaron Jones. On my list. Let's start at the top. You got Matt Judon. He can play edge, or he can line up as a linebacker. Just go ahead and the floor is yours, my friend. Explain your thought process with Matt Judon.
For those who don't know, I live in Baltimore, Maryland, have a lot of exposure to the Ravens, been here my whole life. So I've had a lot of opportunities to watch Matt Judon. They tagged him last year, and I thought he was going to be a free agent, and he's been number 1 on my wish list for the Dolphins for 2 years now. I actually run into him once in a while. I don't stalk him or talk to him, but I see him at the local Target up here. He lives pretty close to me. But I really think he's the perfect fit for the Dolphins defense. You can move him around. He can get to the passer. He can set the edge. At times he looks downright dominant. And I know, right? He's probably a $20 million a year player, which makes it really tough in this year's salary cap to fit it into your team. I do think that after this year in 2022, we're going to see the cap go up a great deal when things kind of get back to normal. Big TV deals are coming. So, if you can weather the storm for a year, I think a talent like him could take the Dolphins defense to the next level. Like, I think Emmanuel Ogbah was a great story this year, right? But he kind of fizzled at the end of the season when we needed him most, right? I think Andrew Van Ginkel turned out to be the best overall pass rusher on this team when I watched this year. But I think we lack that one guy who can bend around the end like Gumby a little bit. And I think Matt Judon can do that. He does all the little things right. I think he's a 3-time Pro Bowler. We were talking earlier a little bit about how the Dolphins are kind of building a defense that's similar style than the Ravens. So, it wouldn't be anything that's new to Judon. I don't think the Ravens can afford keeping him. They have limited cap space. They have Orlando Brown forcing a way out, but they need to pay Lamar. They need to pay Mark Andrews. Both Judon and Yannick Ngakoue are both unrestricted free agents. They probably can keep one key free agent, and the rest are going to be tough to fit in. So I think he hits the market. And again, he's another guy that I'm afraid the New York Jets could possibly get their hands on because of his familiarity with Joe Douglas and Douglas, being part of the Ravens previously. So I like Judon's a guy I love. Curtis Samuel, God, I think he is a great fit for what we want and what we need on this team. I saw a quote today that they need someone with a little twitch in the slot. He can do that. He can also burn from the perimeter. And what I like about Samuel is I don't think he's going to cost you the type of money that we're going to see shelled out for top tier free agent wide receivers this year. Again, I see him as a number 3 option in the passing game. Not, I think if Samuel was landed, I would say Samuel would be the 3, Parker would be the 2, and whoever we probably walk away with in the draft would be the number 1, and that's the trio you'd really see. From what I heard last year, the Dolphins were going to sign Joe Thuney, and that was one of the main reasons the New England Patriots franchised him. They had him high on their list. He fits the culture. He's a leader. I actually think he can bump in and play a little center if you wanted him to, too. But again, not going to let a good player prevent me from taking a great one. Eric Flowers was serviceable this year, maybe a little bit better than that. But
got to move that contract, my friend.
Yeah, I think no matter what happens with Flowers, he's gone after this year.
Thank God.
And Joe Thuney's probably got 5 Pro Bowl seasons in a row coming up. I know the next guy is a guy you like a lot, and it's actually probably if I had to say, like, give me one free agent that I knew we could have, I would take him because I think he'd bring veteran leadership to the offensive line. He fills a huge need at center. He might be the best center in football right now. He really might be. And Corey Linsley, I don't see the Packers retaining him. They have to pay Aaron Jones, I think, and I think they're making offers of doing so. But God, I really think Linsley is the missing component. I'd actually, feel good about the offensive line if you went left to right. Austin Jackson, Flowers, you have Linsley. Even if you went Kinley and Hunt, I'd feel okay about it. I mean, I know that you want your boy Penei Sewell in there, but like I feel okay with that line. So I'm a Corey Linsley guy. And then Aaron Jones, like, look, paying running backs is the easiest way to go backwards if you're an NFL franchise. But let's not act like the Miami Dolphins don't need significant help at that position. Like, they made a huge run at Le'Veon Bell, and they almost got him. And Aaron Jones, to me, I mean, like, I don't have a list in front of me, but it's hard to name 5 better running backs in the league right now than Aaron Jones. Like, let me ask you, Reason, would you rather have Aaron Jones right now or Ezekiel Elliott?
I would rather have Aaron Jones.
Yeah, he can catch the pass. He's a
way better route runner.
Yeah, and look, he's probably going to cost $14-15 million a season, and that's a lot to stomach. But I'll tell you what, he brings instant credibility to the Miami running game, and you feel really good if you go in the season with Aaron Jones, Myles Gaskin, Salvin Ahmed as your kind of 1, 2, 3. So, that's kind of it. Like, I know that there'll be disappointment that there's not Allen Robinson on there. I think Allen Robinson's going to get paid sick money.
Yeah.
Juju Smith-Schuster is probably going to get tagged or signed for outrageous money. Like, there's a lot of guys that are just like, look, I know the salary cap's not what it's projected to be, but there's still a couple teams that are at 100 or near $100 million. And like, people will still find the way to get their money this year. And I just don't expect the Dolphins to be outrageous spenders. I really don't. I think they're trying to build this the right way. Like, and when I say that, they might add one significant free agent, maybe 1 or 2 complimentary guys, but I think they're going to do a lot of their work in the draft.
I agree. And so let's just start at the top of the list here.
Sure.
With Matt Judon. You look at the last 2 years, my friend. This guy has just the last 2 years, okay? 109 of his career 211 pressures are in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
17 of his career 38 sacks the last 2 years. All right. 51 of his 100 career hurries the last 2 years. I mean, the guy 142 stops in his career, and you look at him, 66 of those are in the last 2 years with run stops. I mean, 8 career forced fumbles, 5 of those are in the last 2 years. I mean, the guy is clearly on the upswing right now. And I love that you put him there because I agree with you. If they're going to go linebacker, I mean, he can play the right, he can play the left, he can play standing up. Where do you want him? I love that guy. And then you got Curtis Samuel, and you were talking about, I saw I think it was a Barry Jackson article, right? About the twitchiness and all that stuff.
Yep.
The guy was tied for 6th in the league, averaging 3.5 yards of separation per route. You know, Devontae and Gesicki are out here averaging what, 1.8?
Sure.
1.7? You know what I mean? We were in the bottom 3 with receivers creating separation off the routes. Terrible stuff. Joe Thuney, to me, I agree with you. I think this guy's Pro Bowler. I mean, he's still, you know, he's 28 right now, I think.
He won't be cheap, though.
No, but you know what? Move that Flowers contract. And the only pushback I would give to Thuney is I thought Kinley, that because left guard's his natural spot,
Sure,
vastly improved Austin Jackson in the run game.
yes.
You know, it was clear. And I thought Kinley, out of all the guys that played next to Jesse Davis, talking to you, Robert Hunt, clearly had the best communication skills. They were handing off combo blocks, no problem. You know what I mean? And I think Hunt is just truly a guard. The guy can't handle a stun for his life. I've talked about his hip flexibility. I've talked about his footwork, you know, in terms of handling. Like, you know, Marcus Golden dominated him. All right? Yeah, that's all I needed to see to be like, okay, you need to be kicked inside, sir.
I'm with you. I think Hunt is a right guard, and I think he'll actually be a really good one. But I think you want to make the move sooner than later, too. Like don't put him on an island. You know, get him home, make him find a home, whatever that position is on the offensive line, so you know what you have. Like, because I'll say I agree with a lot of things you said about his footwork and everything, but there's no doubt if you line that dude in a right guard, he's going to move.
Oh yeah,
and that's what we need.
I think you can. Here's my thing, Neal. I think you can get Pro Bowl, all pro level from him at guard, whereas right tackle, it feels like you're just experimenting.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And let me ask you this, because, you know, I love Lindsley. I think he's, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Corey Lindsley going to be the only first-team All-Pro hitting the market this year at any position?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm pretty sure he is. But anyways,
he's awesome.
I was talking with a Packer fan because I was expecting about 9-10, and the rumor out of Green Bay is about 12 million right now. And I know there's a lot of, and he was high on my list, Taylor Moton out of Carolina, fixing the right tackle spot.
He'd be like 6 or 7 on this list.
Yeah, the thing is, you're gonna have to pay him like top
15.
tackle money, right? Yeah, exactly. And that hurts. But let me ask you this: you got Jackson at left tackle. All right. You know, I've talked with Richmond Webb about this. He said, you know, this kid needs to hit the weight room. Clearly he has problems. It was a USC. Then it started getting exposed when he came back with guys coming across his face. But that can be coached up. You kick Kinley to left. You sign Lindsey, you plug him into center, you kick Hunt into guard at right, and you draft Penei Sewell. You know, I want to hear your thoughts because I've been telling people that's the making of, in 1 year, we're a top 5 offensive line, and 2 to 3, we're top 3 offensive line when you look at those bodies across. What would be your thoughts on having a Jackson, Kinley, Lindsley, Hunt, Penei Sewell offensive line?
That line would be awesome, no doubt. That'd be a real big step in the right direction. And I'm all about taking Penei Sewell with the notion that you can trade back up and get like one of those receivers. Because I love Najee Harris, but that's like a nice to have. Like if you're going to spend running back, and look, they can trade up instead of taking Xavien Collins. Like I mocked and probably get Najee Harris. They could potentially walk away with Waddle, Najee Harris, and Penei Sewell if they really, really wanted to. God, I might have to take 3 days off of work because of the hangover at that one. But with that said, like, yeah, I mean, Lindsley and Sewell, you kick them in, they're the best 2 players on your offensive line. Like instant upgrade, you know?
What's your thoughts of Leonard Fournette?
You know, what's funny is I really wanted us to get him when he was available. I really did. And, you know, he was key to the Bucs offense in that postseason run, man. He was running people over, fighting for yards, taking on initial contact. I like Leonard Fournette. I wonder what he's going to cost, because here's the reality for me. the best case scenario for me is that if we go to this draft and we don't need center and running back, we have that accomplished somehow. If we take these two guys from Green Bay and that's the spending we do, cool. I feel great with that, because then you go in the draft and you're dangerous. Knocking out the Dolphins they have needs. I'm not going to act like they have it all figured out. But outside of wide receiver, linebacker, and running back, I think nothing screams like, oh my God, we need help right away. Right? I think offensive line and safety are in other positions they could definitely improve. But if you knock out two needs and you head into this draft with the draft capital that they have, they can be very, very, very dangerous. And, I know that Brian Flores is going to want an edge rusher in this draft, and I think he's going to want one earlier than most of us think. So, one name that I really think that could be a potential in the top of round 2 if he fell there was Joseph Asai from Texas.
I love that guy, man.
You know what he could be in that defense? I think Jamie Collins when he was playing for New England.
He's the perfect stand-up linebacker for that defense.
Great. He's great. And a lot of those guys, Azeez Ojulari, you mentioned earlier, he could be that guy.
Hey, if Kwity Paye falls to 18, Neal, what do you do?
Stephen Ross knows Michigan, right? So he'll have some intel there. And that's the thing. There's a lot of good players in this draft.
Micah Parsons, because of his character concerns, he could be there at 18 now, right?
Let me see. I wrote it down. Michael Parsons is my 4th overall player in this draft. So he's the only defensive player I have in my freaking top 10. So I'm with you there. That's why it's like I said earlier, try not to fall in love with players. Get a good broad horizon on who's out there in this draft class, because you'll see people get disappointed when the Dolphins take a really, really good player and you're like, okay, I get that you wanted X, but have you seen why? He's all right. And that's where it's but look, free agency's coming up. We're a month away. Wow. What's the draft? 2.5 months now? Yeah. We're gearing up for the season. And I can't believe how fast it's been. I feel like we just took Tua at 5, last week. So I'm excited. This is the best time of year.
I wanted to get your thoughts quickly on how you rank Horn, Farley, and Surtain, because my partner, a Dolphin fan, he posed a really interesting thing if you can't work out the financials. He said, stay at 3, all right, and try to move back up using Xavien Howard into the top 10. You don't have to touch the 18. Use X and some capital either next year or whatever. Move up and draft Caleb Farley. And boom, plop him in there. If you can't work out the financials, what are your thoughts on Farley? Me, it's Farley, Horn, and then Surtain. Sure. I wanted to, because I think Surtain's kind of living off his name a little bit. What's your thoughts on the top 3 DBs in this? Because I had to ask you, because you said Mike is your only top 10 guy in terms of defensive players.
The 3 you mentioned are the only cornerbacks that I would sniff in round 1. I know Eric Stokes is on the rise, and the Melifonwu from Syracuse is getting a lot of love lately. But I in my previous writing gig, one of the guys I jumped on early was JC Horn. And I love Horn. The one thing that does scare me is he gets grabby. And in the NFL, grabby cornerbacks scare me, because I hate seeing that yellow flag on the field. I think that Farley and Surtain are interchangeable. I really do. Farley's athletic profile is amazing. He has outrageous athleticism. He sat out this year, and he plays in the ACC, which are 2 small, little nitpicky things I'm doing. I like Surtain. I do. His bloodlines. I like his length. He has I think he has the best ball skills of the 3 corners. But Farley's right there too. I mean, they're all, they're going to go top 12, both Farley and Surtain. And I think Horn's going to go a lot higher than people think too. Arizona, I don't think there'll be a corner after 16. They'll all be off, but you got Dallas, you have Denver. Both those teams really, really need cornerback help. The Giants need cornerback help. It will be hard to see that 10, 11, 12 pick. If both those corners survive, I'd be shocked.
Okay. And your safety one, just to clarify, is Richie Grant, right?
No, he's 2. It's Trevor Moehrig from TCU.
Oh, yeah. Man. What do you think about our Darius Washington? I think so many people are sleeping on him, and I get honey badger vibes from that kid.
I love him, but he's 5'8". So I'm with you. I have him like I have my board here right in front of me, and I can tell you, like I was mocking him in the second round. I have him as my fourth safety. So actually I can read this off right now. So I have Morig. I actually have number 2 is Andre Cisco from Syracuse. 9 picks last time we saw him on the field. I have Javon Holland at 3. Darius Washington's my 4, and Richie Grant's actually my 5. So, like, I like Darius Washington. I think he's going to be a 4th round steal for somebody. I think both those cats from TCU can play day one.
Yeah. What are your thoughts of, because a lot of Dolphin fans, I put them onto this player. What are your thoughts of Paris Ford?
He was awesome for this year. I mean, I actually had to do a little bit of work on him, but I was surprised when some of the mocks that I read that put out 6-7 rounds that I saw him going in the 6th round. I think he's a better player than that. He doesn't have like a great stature or size to him, but look, the guy makes plays on the football, and that
he hits like a truck too, eh?
That whole Pitt defense was a lot of fun this year. Rashad Weaver, Patrick Jones. I mean, they have a corner, Jason Pinnock, who's got good length. I mean, definitely DeMar Hamlin, who we mentioned earlier. I mean, they have, and then Jalen Twyman didn't play this year. So there's some cats on that Pittsburgh defense that can play. But yeah, I like Paris Ford's one of those guys that's definitely intriguing. Again, like that's a position the Dolphins could draft 1 or 2 guys at as safety. That's, like, because look, Bobby McCain could easily kick inside the nickel and be a corner. So if they could find themselves a great center field safety, it wouldn't surprise me if McCain played back in the corner.
What are your thoughts on Nick Needham? Because I'm pretty sure he's a restricted free agent this offseason.
Yeah, they'll tenure him this year, but I don't know if they're going to pay him. You know what I mean? I think they have too much invested in corner with Jones, Howard, and Noe Benogany. Like a guy like Needham might be able to pull $8 million on the open market. And he did well last year. He played well. There was definitely, again, he's another guy down the stretch that kind of disappointed me a little bit, especially in that Bills game. He looked lost. Isaiah McKenzie was eating his lunch, but I look, the guy has been a very good find for the Miami Dolphins. I know that you guys talked about him early in the offseason last year, and he's been a good player. It's just you can't pay everybody. There's got to be something now. Like, look, who knows how this offseason plays out? The Dolphins are rumored in Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Rob Gronkowski. I saw today. Like it's not a dull moment in Miami Dolphins fan world right now. So I have no idea what this team's going to look like next year, because I'll tell you this reason, and I think there's a lot of smoke around the Deshaun Watson thing. And
give me your thoughts on Deshaun Watson. I want to hear your thoughts on the whole situation.
I think Deshaun Watson's the 3rd best quarterback in football. I think it's Mahomes, Russell Wilson, then him. I was enamored with the guy at Clemson. I think he's perfect in the modern day NFL. I think Tua's ceiling is what we see with Watson is what we want Tua to develop into, right? But like, you got to pay a lot to get him. It's going to be very expensive. So when you're talking about Tua and 3 first-round picks, like, see, my analysis on Tua hasn't changed. I had Tua as the best quarterback I've seen in the draft since Andrew Luck in 2012.
As did I. Yep.
And I'm not falling off of that hill yet. Look, He's a rookie. There was no offseason. He was coming off a catastrophic hip injury. All these, you can call me excuses, whatever.
They're not.
I'll be okay
Context.
We saw glimmers in Arizona in the 4th quarter in Kyler Murray's house. Who was the better quarterback in the 4th quarter?
Tua Tagovailoa.
When the Chargers played crunch time against the Dolphins, Herbert was a better rookie, no doubt. But who was better in that game in the 4th quarter?
Tua.
Yeah, so like,
we can keep going with Herbert, the Patriots,
and the loss to the Chiefs. Who was the better quarterback on the field that day? Right, like, so we look. That's all picking hairs. I believe that if you give Tua the weapons and build around him, he's going to be special. I think if we gave up 3 first-round picks and Tua, everyone would say that the Texans are fools, but I would say that it's a pretty equal trade if the Dolphins are getting a superstar, but the Texans rebuild would happen a lot faster than we're probably anticipating right now, right?
Would you do that trade?
Ooh, man, that's tough.
I wouldn't, because I feel like with Tua, I'm giving you 4 first-round picks.
The trade I would do, I'll be 100% honest, right? So that there's no question. I would I would do Tua, I would do Xavien Howard, and I would do one first-round pick that's not pick number 3. So if you're telling me that it's my 2022 first-round pick, Tua and X, I would. And the only reason I would do that is because I think Watson is where I think we're immediate AFC contenders with Watson. And I still think at number 3, you can do whatever the hell you want. You can trade back to recoup that draft capital, right? So if we did that trade and we say traded pick 3 to Carolina, we had pick 8, we get their second rounder and their 22 second. I would definitely do that trade. And that's not a knock on Tua. So that's just the reality of what I see right now. Because look, I'm not a fortune teller. Like, I'm wrong when guessing in the future more than I'm right. So what I live for is carpe diem, live for the day. And right now, Watson makes his team contender. I don't think the Dolphins can lose, though. Right? I don't think the Dolphins can lose when one of the biggest superstars in the league want to be in Miami. And that's why I think there's smoke. I think Deshaun Watson wants to play in Miami. I don't think the Jets he wants to touch. I think Miami, like you said earlier, right? South Beach, it's heaven. No state taxes. The thing that's different is the Dolphins have a fun culture with a well-respected coach and a great front office, right? And they are aware of social issues, and they understand that, and they support them. And the Dolphins culture right now is contagious. So when great players come on that market, trust me when I say they're paying attention to the Dolphins. And the Dolphins don't have to break the bank to pay people like Mike Wallace and Brandon Albert now, because people want to be in Miami. So I think it's going to be one of the most fun off seasons that we've seen in a long time. And when we usually talk about these trades and you hear about these outrageous price tags, right, for these players, it never turns out to be as much as everyone thinks. So I don't think they're getting 5 first-round picks or the equivalent of it, because the reality of it all is the players control it. Like, I know that they can sit them out, but finding Deshaun Watson a few $100,000 doesn't mean anything to the guy. All you're going to do is piss him off more and force him out the door. Like, the leverage is with the players. And I don't know how the Texans save themselves. The last 3 years, what the Texans have done to their franchise with the Tunsil trade, and I love Larry Tunsil, and trading him sucked, but what we got for him, you had to make the trade. Letting J.J. Watt go for nothing. I know that you wanted him to pick his landing spot, but this is a business where you need resources, and you were good enough to get the 3rd pick in last year's draft. You're going to let J.J. Watt go to another team, potentially the Steelers or Browns in your conference, for nothing? Come on, that is awful. And then now you have the best player in your franchise, maybe the best offensive player you're ever going to have, with all due respect to Andre Johnson, right? And you can't make the guy happy, and you do make moves all offseason to piss him off. I don't get it. I'm glad I'm not a Texans fan, but I do think that Deshaun Watson to the Miami has a lot of legs. I actually told Hotzat the other day, I sent him a message and said, man, there's smoke here. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a conversation. And I don't think that stems from the Dolphins not loving Tua.
You just got to do your job, right? You got to check in.
Job. This is like, we are fans. This is their livelihood. This is how they feed their families, right? And if you get it wrong in the NFL, you might not get another chance. So what they're doing is, look, you head into next season with Deshaun Watson as your starting quarterback, right? There are going to be majority of the people out there that have you ranked as the 2nd or 3rd best team in the whole entire AFC, top 5 in the NFL. We've already seen some people coming out with the Dolphins at like 11, right? And their best wide receiver, Devontae Parker, missed more games than touchdowns he caught last year, right? So, like it's exciting. I'm going to let it play out. I'm not going to stress about it. Like, this is way better than wondering, what the hell our future looks like under Joe Philbin. Is it Ryan Tannehill? Like, all that stuff is in the rearview mirror, and being a Dolphins fan is fun. And God, all I can say is buckle up and make sure you have good health insurance, because I know a lot of people are going to be breaking their hands, punching walls and stuff like that if they don't get their way, right? So it's going to be a long, windy road this offseason.
I think a team to watch with the Deshaun thing, because everything I've read, it seems like GMs are saying, hey, he's not really available. I think a team to watch is San Francisco as well.
Absolutely.
Just flat out, do you think he gets traded or makes things work in Houston?
Here's the thing is, they got to make a move soon, right? We just talked, we're 60 some days away from the draft, right? So they lose the value of Deshaun Watson if they don't get a deal done before this year's draft, right? Because the only team that would have enough capital to really wow him at that point would probably be the Jets. And for whatever reason, it seems like he doesn't want to go there. I don't know how much of that's true. I have no plugs in with the Jets. I don't, so, but with that said, it's the Texans. I think they're going to mess it up. I think that he's going to be a member of the Texans after this year's draft. And I think that they're probably only going to get like 2 first-round picks for him or 3 first-round picks with no proven talent, because what's going to happen is the longer it goes, the less teams are going to be vying for his services. Like we've already seen Matthew Stafford go to the Rams and Jared Goff go to the Lions. Carson Wentz is going to sign with the Colts or Bears or whoever it is in the next couple of days. That takes another quarterback-needy team out of the fray. If you go to the draft, 3 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 10, maybe 4 in Trey Lance, right? So then you take 4 other teams out of the equation. Before you know it, you might just be bidding with one team. And if you don't have leverage in those negotiations, the value's not going to be there.
Okay. Yeah, you're right, man. All right, last question for you, bro.
Yep.
The noise surrounding Russell Wilson right now. Get Up and First Take said that we've checked in on the Russell Wilson. And again, you had Deshaun Watson at 3, Russell at 2. And just going back to Deshaun, when I was hearing you talk about Deshaun, the Bears, I feel so bad for the Bears with the Trubisky. I hated that kid coming out.
Oh.
But anyways, and I think they're the perfect landing spot for Trey Lance, but I don't think he makes it to 20. Okay, so what's your thoughts on Russell Wilson, that whole noise? And because let's be honest, buddy, your contract is why they have to be so frugal at certain. I mean, you broke up the Legion of Boom. Let's call a spade, all right? When your wife is out here making hundreds of millions of dollars and you don't even need it anyways. Anyways, what's your thoughts on the Russell Wilson noise? And what's your thoughts on the Get Up and First Take rumors? Because I haven't heard Schefter, I haven't heard McShane, I haven't heard anyone else lock in that we checked in on them. But what's your thoughts on that whole situation?
The Get Up show is very entertaining. I enjoy watching them. I love all the clips, especially last year when everyone was gooing and gone about Tua, right? But they're there to get you to view, and they're going to make stories out of things that are not. Look, I believe that teams inquire about players all the time. I'd be shocked if teams didn't ask him what the availability of Russell Wilson is. I just don't see a way that he's not the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks week 1. Now, I do think they need to protect him, and you bring up a great point. Once you pay your quarterback those life-changing contracts, your window it closes pretty quickly. It's hard to do. Like one team that's doing it right now is the Baltimore Ravens. They had 18 Pro Bowlers last year, and they lost a home playoff game to Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans. Now, like Lamar Jackson's due his $35 to $40 million. And, they got Mark Andrews, Orlando Brown Jr. If he sticks around, they have to pay Judon and Ngakoue. We mentioned them all earlier. Like once you pay your quarterback, it gets a lot harder. So they won't trade Russell Wilson. But there's definitely something there for this story to get out. And he's practically given their front office, I think, a little heads up like, hey, I'm tired of getting hit. And I'm here next season. But if I get hit again, this noise is going to get a little bit louder. And I think that's where it is. But, Pete Carroll, like him or not, he's a good coach, and I think he wouldn't let Russell Wilson lead that team.
Agreed. And just quickly, would you be okay with them trading for Orlando Brown to fix that right tackle spot in Miami?
Well, he won't play right. That's why he's
I know he wants to play left, but you can convince him money talks, bullshit walks, right?
Well, here's how I'll answer that question, though. If you can get him and it doesn't cost you one of your first round picks, the guy's 25 years old and made 3 Pro Bowl. I watched him last year. He was the best player on the Ravens. That's my prediction.
Just give him left tackle money, Neal. That's all you got to do.
That or let him play left tackle, right? Because like we're saying, like say Penei Sewell's better than Austin Jackson, we'll let him play. Maybe you can get a guy like Orlando Brown in here. You can kick Austin Jackson maybe to the right side, still kick Hunt in the guard, and do something that way. Because I'll tell you this, I'm shocked that the Ravens are actually allowing him permission to seek the trade. And we saw what Tunsil fetched. If it's pick 36 for Orlando Brown Jr., I'll drive down to Cleveland myself, get the pick from Chris Greer, and turn it in, because you're not getting a better player than Orlando Brown Jr. at pick 36. And that guy is a big, strong dude.
Hey,
no bloodlines again. His dad.
Let me hit you with this. What about the 36 in Austin Jackson? So you still draft Panay at 3 and plug him in at your right tackle.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, that'd be freaking that.
Because he's a massive upgrade from Jackson.
Nolan Brown at bookend would be actually just. I'd actually probably not even watch the quarterback play or the receivers. So all I'd probably do is watch the tackles. That was be, man. Because that would be, with Hunt and Kinley's big asses in the middle there. Holy crap!
And you pay Lindsley.
Yeah, I mean that team would just be. That would be filthy. I honestly think though. Like the Ravens are such a good franchise. They don't let players like that go.
Yeah.
Like if they can't work it out, I'd be shocked. I really think he'll be there. Show him the money, like you said, and maybe he's like, cool, right tackle's fun.
Yeah. And I'm just going to make a last comment because I forgot to mention them, and I've been plugging this narrative. Another team I think that would be very interesting to watch in the Deshaun Watson talk, if he's willing to go there, is Washington.
Sure.
You already got Gibson. You got McLaurin. They're building that stout defense. They can give up some pieces on that defense and still not really hurt them. Plus, if they can afford to give up 3 first-round picks, because they're in the NFC East, it takes 7 or 8 wins to win it. Deshaun Watson would dominate that division for like 10 years. And
their defense is awesome.
The defense
is playoff ready. So I can see it. There's a lot of rumors out there that they could be looking at Marcus Mariota. And Sam Darnold's another name too. So you never know with Washington. Daniel Snyder's an interesting owner. He's the sheriff in that town. They can get whatever coach they want, but Daniel Snyder makes interesting decisions. But I don't think Taylor Heineke is going to be the guy who gets them to the promised land.
Agreed. All right, guys, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't. We got 230 in the room. We peaked at about 250. Neal, I want you to go ahead and plug everything you got coming up for everyone and where they can find your work at. I'm going to put your Twitter up on screen right now.
Yeah, starting at SportsRants this Saturday is my initial article for them, which is going to be the 7-round mock draft we talked about earlier. A little bit different for me is now that I won't just be draft centric. I'll also be focusing on the Miami Dolphins and contributing about the Miami Dolphins, which is, my first love. So I'm excited to do that. And, you know where to find me on Twitter. And, I'm always down for a good football conversation. Trying to do no drama these days. I'm getting a little bit older, more gray in my hair. So I just try to stay out of that. The Twitter streets can be rough, and I'm staying out of those. So I'll sit and hide here in Baltimore County where I live and be agreeable. And look, guys, it's going to be really fun the next 60, 90 days. It's free agency. It's the draft. This is, for us guys that love to cover the team, this is what it's all about. For me as a Dolphins fan, it's players coming into my family. So I can't wait. It's going to be interesting. The Dolphins are rumored with any player that becomes available more so than ever. And I'm agreeing with Omar Kelly a lot these days. So 2021 continues to be a crazy year. I'm dead serious. Omar is really good at what he does, but him and I have not always seen eye to eye. But every time he tweets now, I'm like, wait, that's exactly how I feel. Whoa, this is crazy. So, a little plug for Omar there. But so let's have fun. I'm always open. Shoot me a DM. Love to talk football and Reason, always love having you. Let you have me on here, man. It's always a good time to chop it up with you on here and talk Dolphins and draft.
Guys, I love this man. I consider him one of my better friends in this community. I would take a bullet for this man. He's a great follow. His draft work is absolutely phenomenal. You need to go follow him on Twitter. I'll be retweeting all the stuff he puts out. I mean, that's just how it is. So, whether you follow me, you follow him, you'll be seeing his stuff on my timeline all over when he drops it. Neal, I know we said we were only going to go for an hour, but it ended up being an hour and a half we're coming up on. Brother, I appreciate you so much for taking the time out and coming on, my friend. And we will be doing this again very shortly, my friend.
Awesome, man. Thank you for having me. Everyone be safe out there with the cold weather and snow we're seeing here up and down here on the East Coast. It's been pretty rough lately, so be careful. Drive a little slower. Don't ride the brakes. We need you all here for next season.
Agreed, my friend. I hope you have a good night. We'll talk very soon, my friend.
Yep. Have a good night, everyone.
So, guys, you need to go follow him. I know I've had him on a bunch of times. I absolutely love that gentleman. He's got my back. I've got his. One of the good friends I've made in this community. He's an absolute phenomenal follow. Make sure you go follow him if you have Twitter, guys. And I mean, he's going to be back here. And, one of the guys, I love talking pigskin with, just like Jeremy Klump, and just like a few others I've had here. Chrissy was great to talk with. So, guys, I am going to be back. It looks like I'm going to be back Wednesday night. I got something special lined up for you. I think we're going to do episode 20 of The Finish Line featuring Richmond Webb and Mr. Ball Game. I believe we're going to be doing that live on YouTube this Wednesday. And then Friday, guys, I'm going to be coming back with my wide receiver big board. All right. And then Thursday, it's your boy's birthday. So after I come home from dinner and get settled, I'm going to hit you guys up and we're going to have a birthday stream on Thursday night. I'll be turning 36. I know I said 37 a couple days ago, and my wife was like, "What are you talking about?" So I'm like, "Ooh," because I'm entering my 37th year, I guess. But anyways, so we'll be back Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, it looks like. So y'all already know what time it is, baby. There's still 218 of you in the room. I love each and every one of you for taking the time out. And guys, it's fins up all day, every day. And I'll see you guys back here on Wednesday. All right, guys? Love you all. Have a good night, and we'll see you soon.